Hi guys, it's that time again. Which is better? And it will be a FLESHGOD Apocalypse special. So if you're into symphonic death metal / technical death metal, then this video is definitely for you. And the two albums we're going to be looking at are Agony and Labyrinth. Let's get into this. Agony, I like the way they managed to mix the brutal force of technical death metal with the calming and epic symphonies of symphonic metal. Stefano Ito has perfectly mastered and mixed this album so that everything can be heard, not at the same amplitude, so you can actually make out the guitarist from the drumming and the symphonies in the background. The album starts strongly with a symphonic intro called Temptation, which becomes louder as the song goes on, and more symphonic elements are added until the climax right at the end of the song, when the hypocrisy kicks in and your ears are treated to excellent guitar riffs and sublime growls. The album is so immersive that I couldn't help but get lost in their perfection. I got used to the clean vocals after a while and realised that they actually fit in well with the style of symphonic metal play, as they are sung almost operatically, which brings links back to the classical operas forged by Mozart and Verdi in the 18th and 19th century respectively, from which of what symphonic metal is based upon. The growls fit the technical death metal they play perfectly and is consistent throughout the album. What is interesting is the song Forsaken. They seem to play a more atmospheric sound consistent with Abigail Williams' latest album Becoming, which is brilliant in its own right, so it doesn't drag the song's credibility down at all. In fact, it adds to the perfection that emanates from this album's every orifice. The album is truly strong. It is brutal enough to listen to while angry, or soothing enough to listen to while relaxing. I would honestly recommend this to anyone who's an avid listener of symphonic death or even black metal, as it should be considered as one of the masterpieces of the genre. So switching gears, we're going to look at Labyrinth. Now, some say that you cannot have a successful life of achievement without first having to enslave or ruin the life of another. Now, FLESHGOD Apocalypse reminds us of that. This Italian band has created a dramatic soundtrack to the brutality of human condition, what man does to himself and his fellow man in order to fulfill his desires. Would it not be fitting for such a subject, long since rendered in the classical arts, to be accomplished by a dramatic symphonic score? The release of this album marks the next milestone in FLESHGOD Apocalypse's career. First off, so all of those who love Agony, Labyrinth is just as intense as that. The drums are still absolutely furious, the death grunts just as angry and guttural as ever. The music is still packed with so many notes and tracks to be completely overwhelming, especially now with a full live choir. To my ears, it's so different that Agony, save for maybe a slightly clearer sound, but it is far as their metal goes. In fact, there is something new to Labyrinth. This album it's definitely not Agony Part 2. The band found the soul of their new sound with Agony. Now, like I told for them to use, they are applying said sound to construct a new concept piece. This album was conceptually about the abuses when does his fellow man. It is the same here, but now it has been filtered through the world of ancient Greek drama and literature. A very suited subject as much in Greek literature, and can be allegorical to man's own emotions and actions. With this mystical new genre, a band has felt it has the room to give their music a little more atmosphere that can easily be seen in the first track, that begins with a sound of an exhausted man walking through a field of wind-blown grass. Distant bird chirps and buzzing insects. Then a clang of metal and grinding of stone announces the opening of a massive door, which he then walks through as it closes shut with the gust of dust-filled cryptical air. Hero Theseus has entered the endless labyrinth, seeking out the Minotaur. In actuality, the man has entered the maze of life to do battle with a hated evil he does not realize, but is a mirror of his own self. This is definitely high drama. Within, the band has given more space to invoking this drama. This album is not a straight assault bookended by a classical intro or outro like Agony. There are more pauses here for dramatic flair. The maelstrom will pause for piano and violin solos. Also, the piano is far more noticeable, with the frenzy flourishes all over each song, and then another virtuosity on top of the guitars, bass and drums. Oh, and orchestra. This stuff is dense. Just like before, FLESHGOD does not leave the orchestra and choir to simply as accent, but instead work it into piece. Superb if you ask me. Anyways, towards the end is also an expanded classical guitar solo, a real pleasant surprise. Its entry is so sudden and its performance so gentle that it serves to give a tear-inducing moment of sad peaks before the apocalyptic conclusion of the album. An immensely satisfying touch when incorporated as a whole. And finally, Veronica has returned once more to give her vocal talent as the lead soloist for the studio choir. Her vocal duties are expanded too, accompanying almost all of the songs on the album. With this, the notorious and contentious falsettos of Paolo have been scaled back a little to give the choir more room, something which may be a welcome to a few listeners, or a downside depending on what your perspective is. One of the more best parts of the new work of art is the ending. The song Epilogue turns back on their technical wizardry to make a more emotive and sorrowful expression. It is a good conclusion to the drama of the whole album, even though it could be a weak ending to the album, but it is not so because it is a false ending, rising like the kraken behind its technical talented beast that is under black cells. Its passage is a massive hurricane that wipes clean everything until all you have is a black empty ocean that is the title track, washing you out to oblivion. So more dramatic orchestra, more choirs and symphonic and classical guitar, introspective atmospheric tracks. With FLESHGOD, Apocalypse has taken their amazing brutal sound and sewn it into a more theatrical sound than ever before. Normally for most metalheads, hearing this is usually indications that the sound has lost its violence and strength. Not the case here. The band still sounds as intense as ever, and they simply have given some extra room and pause for more atmospheric theatre elements. In fact, for me, this is exactly what I could hope for. The band has kept more of their sound and creatively worked in more drama and emotive expression. Makes me think of the way many revered artists from Carcass to My Dying Bride, who in their heyday evolved their sound slightly with each album, and years later those albums are still held as classics of the genre. I'm sure the same will be said for FLESHGOD, Apocalypse. Fit this form from a group of musicians whose staples were not only just a steady diet of brutal death. In closing, after listening to Agony and Labyrinth back to back, I noticed something. Agony is the unpolished brutal core of the band, something amazing I do love for bringing goth metal to its most brutal and extreme incarnation by merging it with tech death. Agony is the album I will give some as an introduction to the band. The band has a lot they would have to try and overcome for the next album. I'd advise them to work on, I think what would be advisable is that they work on experimental, hyper-technical exposition of their sound, kind of like what Gorguts do. Although if they get the orchestra, I'd advise them to just try and top this album, Labyrinth. After all, they've created a whole new sound to experiment with, or perfect it if they want. I eagerly await what is to follow. So there you have it, guys. Let me know in the comment section what you think was the better album. Other than that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.